Hi, I'm Brian, and I'm a product manager at Databricks. MCP is all about tools. It's about building and creating tools to augment your AI with new capabilities. In this course, we'll build our first MCP server. We will build tools, resources, and prompts. We'll talk about how to design MCP servers. We'll talk about how to host them with streamable HTTP, and we'll even vibe code a little bit. I'm super excited about AI and agents and what tools unlock. Go build something amazing with MCP. First thing here is we're going to create a server. So equals new MCP server, name, add server. You can call it whatever you want. And you have to give it a version. This is just telling it like, hey, I have version 1.0.1. So if you have cached internally 1.0.0, please invalidate your cache and repull it. Okay, so now we have this MCP server. We're going to say server dot register tool. So add, there we go. And then we're going to give it a title. So this is really important because this is how the AI is going to decide, do I want to use this tool or not? So we're going to call this the addition tool. We're going to give it a description, add two numbers together. And then we're going to give it an input schema. Input schema. And then here's where we're going to use Zod. So we're going to say A is going to be z.number, and B is going to be a z.number. So we're building an MCP server that all it does is it takes in two numbers, adds them together, returns them back to the LLM. Okay, so after that, you're going to give it a function, async. It's going to get in A and B. So this is the object that it's going to get from the LLM. It's going to get A and B. That's going to be function, and it's going to return content type text colon string A plus B. I guess we probably could have given a number back, but everything's going to be put into a string anyway, so I put it into a string. Let's just add our last couple of lines here. Const transport equals new standard IO server transport. Transport is just basically like, how am I getting this? Like, how am I managing all the messaging out of this? We talked about there was SSEs, streaming HTTP, and then standard IO. We're using that. Those are all called transports. That's what that term in that particular case means. And we're just going to say await server.connect transport. So this is just a process that you leave running. Or in the case of like Claude Desktop, you give it the files like to go run, and then it'll go run that server for you inside of its shared processes. So I'm going to take that same command here, and then I'm going to say node mcp.js. This is just a pipe, right? This is saying take this and then insert that as like the input into this process. And you'll get some amount of results there. So if you want it to as well, you can just pipe that into JQ as well. Oh. And you can get this like nice, pretty printed thing. So essentially I called the tools list, which is basically saying like, tell me everything that you know about this particular function. And it'll tell you this is the name, this is the addition, it adds two numbers together, all these things. These are the required. This is all the information that your MCP server would pass back to a client, and basically how they handshake of like, here's the tools that are available, right? Because imagine like Claude Desktop is starting up. It's going to call this MCP server, and the MCP server is going to say, here's everything that I can do for you, right? Here's all the text that you need to ingest to know that like I have an addition tool, I have a subtraction tool. This is what it responds with here. Okay, so it's listing stuff now. Let's actually make it like add, right? Like we've come so far. What is 2 plus 3? I don't know. Let's ask. There's no other way I could figure this out. So we're going to come back to the same call. It looks really similar. Instead of saying tools list, we're going to say tools/call. And we're going to give it 2 arguments here. We're going to give it A, 2, and B, 3. Okay, so I changed 2 things. Instead of tools call, it's tools list. Other way around. Instead of tools list, it's tools call. And then I gave it 2 params. So now we should be able to call this. And through all of this machinery, all this code, we have discovered that 2 plus 3 is indeed 5. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to open my VS Code. And we're going to say npm install openmedio like this. Okay, so now if I look in my package.json, you can see I have openmedio here. 1.2 is what I'm on at the moment. And I am fully blessing you that if you just want to copy and paste this, because again, nothing here we did is quite very different from what we did before. The only really interesting part about this is now this is actually doing something more interesting than adding. It's actually adding real capability to an LLM. Because if you ask an LLM, hey, what's the temperature right now in Minneapolis? It's going to tell you, I don't know, right? It doesn't have access. That's not part of its training data is current weather. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new file here. I'm going to save this as weather.js, and I'm just going to paste all of that. Let's look at the Zod types for just a sec, because I think that's useful. The Zod type that you just is the number, you describe it what it is, you say that, you can say that like this is optional. However, it's not optional, right? You can't have just longitude and just say like, tell me everything around like the equator, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's how you would do it there. And then here you're just telling it the weather data that you're expecting to get back, which is what's going to be given back to the LLM. All right, so let's add this as an MCP server. So I'm going to come back to that same Claude desktop here. And I'm just going to copy and paste this because it's more or less the same thing, right? So I'm going to have weather server, same node binary. Args is just going to be weather.js. That's it. We don't have to reinstall the packages because it's in the same directory, right? It's just going to be running a different file. And again, Tome's done the exact same way. So now if we go into Claude Desktop, quit, restart it, new chat. If we look down here, we should see weather server and get weather. And I'm just going to ask, do I need a raincoat today in Minneapolis, Minnesota? If you'd asked this yesterday, though, it would have said yes. So you can see here, it called with latitude and longitude. Someone probably should check that to make sure it's actually true. I have no idea. I'm just trusting it. But it got back this information, which this information looks pretty plausible based on what I can see out the window right now. So now in my directory, I have this big old prompt. And I'm going to say Claude here. And I'm just going to post that business in there and say YOLO go. So let's go ahead and open this in. We let this run for a little while, and I answered yes to a lot of questions and didn't really read them. I was vibing, as we say, and we ended up with something like this. So it came up with its own instructions. Let's close this. Of how do you run it? What other things do we need? It used Neon. It used Neon Auth, which is Stack Auth, which is a different company that Neon contracts out with. It came up with its own TS config. You can see here's kind of some of the packages it used. React, Tailwind, Zod, Next, ESLint. It's all TypeScript based. Came with some, it's fairly well laid out. The code makes sense. It's all really cool that it's able to use like Stack Auth okay, because it's a fairly new piece of technology. I'm pretty impressed with the stuff that it puts out. It's all usually pretty readable. But now we have all this done. Let me remove, because this is all tied to a GitHub already. Or I can just have it do that. So let's open our Ghosty. Where am I? Make sure I'm in the right one. Okay, I am. So I'm going to open Claude again. Let's say Claude MCP list. Make sure all my stuff is still working. So Claude, and then I'm going to say use Playwright to make sure the login works okay. So it's going to make a plan for it. It should eventually spin up Playwright, which should open Chrome. It should get back some screenshots from it. Yeah, sure, I don't care, whatever. So it sees that the server is running. It's going to spin that up. So that is our app that it generated. So you can see here, it's actually running stuff behind the scenes here. Test user. It's putting in a password. Like this is the power of MCP, right? There's a Playwright MCP server that it's interacting with to actually be able to test this. And then it's getting screenshots back and evaluating. It's like, did it do what I thought it was supposed to do?